Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network podcast with me, AJ.
And me, Will.
Together, we will be bringing you our no-holds-barred thoughts, opinions, and detailed analysis on all things Wizarding World. So with that in mind, grab yourself a glass of fire whiskey and settle into this week's episode of the WWN.
Welcome back to the Wizarding Wireless Network with your hosts AJ and Will, streaming to you on all of your favourite podcast providers and on YouTube. On today's chapter episode, we are going to be talking about Chapter 13, Nicholas Flamel.
Of course, the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
I took this out for a bit of light reading.
Right, she was really kidding herself on when she said light. I'm sorry. Who in their right mind takes out a tome, like a proper Book of the Dead, Mummy Returns tome, for a bit of light reading?
Dust blowing off of it.
I swear to God, Hermione Granger would really benefit from getting a Kindle or an iPad with iBooks compatibility.
Yeah, forget about the extension charm on her bag.
100%, absolutely. But let's take a little bit of a deep dive into this episode. What is your overall thoughts, Will, on this chapter?
I think it's a decent chapter. I think it's not probably the best chapter out of the book, but it's definitely one of those chapters where it gives you a lot of the story. It definitely propels the story a lot more forward than a lot of the other chapters that we've read through so far. Yeah,
no, for sure. Completely get that. I do completely get that. I admit I do quite like it because you sort of get, it's like that eureka moment, or as Oprah calls it, the aha moment, to find out exactly who Nicholas Flamel is. And we had sort of discussed this prior to recording, that in the books it's actually Harry who sort of discovers that Nicholas Flamel is the maker of the Philosopher's Stone instead of Hermione. It comes on the back of a wizarding, a chocolate frog card instead of in this book. But then Hermione goes and backs it up with her sources. But this is the thing that I do like about the books, is that Harry gets a bit more page time, shall we say, instead of Hermione sort of stealing the limelight from him a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of really showcases, especially in the books, of actually them working more together as a team. Whereas the films, it's almost like, well, it's to do with research, therefore it's Hermione's strength. And that's not necessarily what the books try to portray.
No, I think the thing about the books isn't as well. I mean, I must say, overall, over the course of the 8 movies, they did do a really good job of portraying every single one of their individual strengths and weaknesses. But I think in the books, that was highlighted a lot more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But this chapter itself, it starts off pretty decent, really. So Harry has no longer gone to look for the Mirror of Erised, but as it stands at the moment, he is still now starting to have these dreams which do follow him throughout the duration of the books, about the death of his parents. And it's a really nice bit of foreshadowing at the beginning, because over and over again, Harry dreams about his parents disappearing in a flash of green light while a high voice cackled with laughter. So obviously this is Voldemort starting really to come in. You're starting to get a feel of the character himself, how cruel he can sort of be.
And I think it also highlights the fact that we're now starting to get a bit more backstory as to the death of Harry's parents as well, of Lily and James.
Do you think in the movies that was portrayed quite well?
I think they got it a bit more nailed down towards the end of the movies. I think that initial scene that we get within the Philosopher's Stone, I don't know. I think for me, watching them together, it falls out of place. But for the film itself as a standalone, makes sense.
Yeah, it's, again, just a little bit of foreshadowing. What I will say that I would like to have seen in the movies, and this may sound exceptionally morbid, but you've seen Lily die, but you didn't get to see the fight that James put up to protect Lily and Harry from Voldemort. Like in Deathly Hallows Part 2, during The Prince's Tale, you just sort of see James lying with his wand at his hand, lying dead essentially on the floor. But you don't get to see, you know, the whole fight that he put up to make sure that both of them were protected.
I think that's one of my main gripes that I have with the Deathly Hallows is the fact that they skim over so much of the kind of explanation and backstory that goes on within that book, especially the Prince's Tale being so condensed down into these little snapshots of each section, whereas it goes into so much detail actually in the book.
I think that is one thing that the movies robbed the books of, is the fact that, especially coming on to Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore takes Harry through Voldemort's pretty much whole life, you know, all you really got to see in Half-Blood Prince in the movie was the part of him going to the orphanage to meet then Tom Riddle, but you completely miss out on the House of Gaunt.
Yeah.
Which I am obsessed with that chapter title.
Honestly.
Because it's like, nowadays, like, somebody needs to market. Do you know, in the Wizarding World branding team, someone has to market that as like a fragrance.
Oh, like HAUS.
Like the House of Gaunt. I can really see it now. I can really see it. I would wear it.
T-shirts.
It would smell of something kind of like really aged red wine, a bit of oud. You know, something really dark. Something dark, a bit musty, mysterious.
Musky.
Yeah. Mysterious. An old wooden ship, as Ewan calls it. I can really see that. And I want it. I would wear it.
I'd buy that. I would.
100%. But yeah, I think that is one thing that the movies did rob the books of. I would love to have seen the development of Voldemort on that path of darkness. I mean, he always did have darkness within him. That's the thing. Obviously, being born of a love potion, it couldn't really understand love at all, really. But I think going from his backstory, it would have helped the character development a lot more. Now, what I will say is, in the movies, I do think they did a phenomenal job of making Voldemort exceptionally inhuman. The books go a little bit further, though. But I think Ralph Fiennes' portrayal of Voldemort is stellar. It's phenomenal. Even now, as I go back and rewatch Goblet of Fire, see that bit where he comes out of the cauldron and the cloak mist settles on him and becomes completely whole again.
It's just the touching, the kind of like feeling of this like new face. Just it's like, it's so creepy. But so it's almost like a model kind of, you know, like how Alyssa Edwards looks at herself in the mirror and just kind of like the faces of the that kind of energy, but also a very sinister energy at the same time.
Terrifying, absolutely harrowing, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
So with this dream, it's a bit like, the bit that kind of annoys me is with these flashbacks that we get in the films, talking about that kind of like that's transference across, or the flow through all the films. It just kind of annoys me a little bit that when the Deathly Hallows came out, that's when they were making the films. So they had all of the books to go from.
Okay, yeah.
So they knew where they were working towards. They knew what was going to be coming next.
Yeah. Like they had all the source material, but you felt it fell a bit flat in some areas.
Yeah, so that kind of disconnection that we've talked about with the death of Lily, how it's very different in the first film to then what we see within like the later films when they really kind of nail it down.
I was talking about like the death of Lily. I'm just sort of waffling on here, but this has been annoying me for a while, and it's because I've seen this post on Instagram or something, and it was like, so Voldemort died essentially the first time because Lily's love made the spell rebound off of Harry and kill Voldemort. What about James? Right? So James died first because he loved his wife and child. So why didn't, when Voldemort goes to kill Lily, the curse rebound on him from that.
Oh, it's going to be one of those things that is completely like wikied away somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure there is like a deep, dark Reddit thread on that, but to be honest, I do not have the brain power at this stage of the game to go through it. I'm sure at some point I will when I cannot sleep at 3 a.m. But that is a post that I seen and it has stuck with me for ages because I cannot fathom how.
You know what it probably is? It's probably the fact that it has to be a mother's love.
Right. Counterpoint to that and playing devil's advocate. When Harry died in the Forbidden Forest, and he then came back to fight Voldemort at the Battle of Hogwarts, none of Voldemort's spells were binding. So, for example, when Voldemort tried to silence everyone at the beginning, you know when Ginny started to scream because Harry had died, and he just said silence, and then all of that spell came out his wand. It didn't cast. But I remember reading in that book, you know, the showdown at the Battle of Hogwarts when they're in the Great Hall.
Yeah.
Harry was saying to Voldemort, something like, "Have you not noticed how none of your spells are taken? They're not binding," and it's because he did that.
Maybe it was then the fact that it has to be part of like a sacrifice. So the fact that James fought and was in battle when he died, whereas Lily stood in the way of Harry being killed. I
will accept that because that actually makes a lot of sense in my head. Let's put it to bed and never speak of it again because I can't. I do like that. That's a very good theory. That's a very good theory.
So I think that might be then how we kind of explain it away, shall we say.
Yeah. What's your thoughts? Right in.
Yeah, why do you think Lily's spell worked and not James's? Obviously, as book readers, we know what this flash of green is. We know now what this is. But obviously, at this point, we as readers for the first time don't know what this is.
No, Cleo, we don't know.
And I was having this conversation the other day, actually, of the memory that Harry has of, and it's especially during the third film when he's being attacked by the Dementors, is the scream Lily has.
Yeah.
But Harry would be too young to remember any of this. So this being a dream and him having the flash of green and the cackles of laughter, do you think this is somehow the Horcrux?
I think it might be,
Because the Horcrux would be able to remember, and I think this is one of the things that was explained away in that memory, is the fact that the Horcrux is part of Harry, and the Horcrux would have been Voldemort. Voldemort was old enough to remember it, but Harry wasn't. So it's the Horcrux section remembering.
Yeah, sort of like Harry's perspective as Voldemort, like it was when Mr. Weasley was attacked as Nagini.
Yeah, exactly.
I am with you. Yeah, I could get behind that. Absolutely.
What would have made a bit more kind of solid proof of that is if the dreams that he was having were from almost Voldemort's perspective, not like we don't get a perspective over this. It just says over and over again, he dreamed about his parents disappearing in a flash of green light whilst Harry's voice cackled with laughter. We don't really kind of get an idea of as to whether he's the one looking at it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or just like a fly on the wall moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes perfect sense.
I really liked this theory, and I didn't necessarily agree with the theory because they based the theory on the films, not the books. Mm-hmm. So it's the fact that it's the Horcrux remembering Lily's scream. Mm-hmm. But it's her saying Harry. I just don't understand like how with the Prisoner of Azkaban with Lily screaming Harry's name, and yet in the first film and the later films, Lily doesn't scream Harry's name.
No, she doesn't. Do you know, part of me though, from what I remember, see when I initially heard Lily, whenever I heard Lily scream, when the Dementor attack on the train, Genuinely, part of me when I was younger thought she was screaming Hagrid, but in a very high-pitched voice. But like, Hagrid! Instead of like, Harry. Could you imagine if Hagrid's just there in the background, like lurking, like...
He's just in the background. It's like, shh, Lily, don't say anything. I'm here. But shh.
I know. Lily and Hagrid having an affair. Could you imagine? Saying that I'd rather
Surprise,
not.
Harry. Harry, get the pregnancy tests out. Like, DNA test.
Kill surprise.
Get him on Jerry and Mikhail now.
The thumbnail for next week is going to be Jeremy Kyle, and you have got James and Hagrid and Lily on 3 chairs. But instead of Jeremy Kyle, it'll be Rita Skeeter.
Oh, yes.
You just know that Rita Skeeter would have loved herself some Jeremy Kyle. Quick quotes Quill. But with all that excitement of the dream that we've spent 17 minutes talking about, which I can't quite believe, with all of that being said, Harry then goes to his Quidditch lesson, and he is very disheartened to find out that the one and only Professor Snape is going to be refereeing. Now, a lot of people, as in the Gryffindor Quidditch team, did think that this was to try and deliberately take points off of Gryffindor, but Harry had another thought in mind. He thought it was going to be a complete rehashing of the original Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin, where he thought that Snape was trying to kill him. Now, I have written here on my little notes, right, that this is a bit suspicious, you know, or is it? But yes, it is. But then again, with this whole Professor Quirrell situation, right, so at this point, Snape must be having his suspicions about Quirrell's loyalty, right? If at any point, do you think he's voiced these opinions to Professor Dumbledore? Because if we're going by this whole overarching theme that Snape was Dumbledore's inside man, do you know what I mean? So you would think at some point Snape would have voiced these concerns to Dumbledore.
It is really interesting because obviously we get later on in this chapter about questioning loyalty. Yeah. But it's whether or not Snape knows it's Voldemort is working with Quirrell. Now,
I remember initially thinking about this. So when we obviously get to the part at the end of the chapter in the Forbidden Forest, there's a little part of me that kind of thinks, right, so if at this point Voldemort is fully sentient but within the back of Professor Quirrell's head, he must then be thinking, Severus, what the hell are you playing at? It was like,
you're meant to be on my side.
Exactly. So do you know what I mean? So do you think when Professor Quirrell goes to bed at night, him and Voldemort are just kind of lying on, a couple lying back to back, chatting crap about Snape, kind of going, well, I don't really know. I mean, does it like me? Because I like him, but I need to know if he likes me.
Exactly. I need to know if I can trust him. Can I tell him my deepest, darkest secrets?
Yeah, that always did sound very confusing to me. It really, really, really did sound confusing to me. But then again, did he atone for his sins when Voldemort rose back to power? Did he have this conversation with him? We'll never know.
I don't know whether it's really actually ever explained, and we'll probably end up maybe referencing this episode back, but whether or not this is actually resolved within the Prince's Tale, because I can't fully remember the chapter off by heart as to kind of what's covered, because there's so much in that chapter. Whether or not there's a bit about whether or not Snape and Dumbledore knew Quirrell was influenced by Voldemort in some way.
Part of me thinks that might not be the case, but I will not lie, it's been actually quite a while since I've read Deathly Hallows. But I've got this really bad toxic trait. I say toxic trait, it's not really, it's just my OCD. But if ever I need to do a read through of Harry Potter, I'll always start from Philosopher's Stone and work my way up. But it won't be I'll exclusively go from 1 to 7. I'll maybe do 1 and then get halfway to 2 and then pick up another book, different genre, have a break, and then sort of dip in and out. So I will need to go back actually and reread that chapter a little bit. Interesting though. So with Snape eventually going to be refereeing this Quidditch team, Harry then goes back and to tell Ron and Hermione, but at that point, Ron and Hermione are playing a little bit of wizard chess.
Yes, and I think this is then what I was alluding to earlier with the fact that obviously this is the whole point of Hermione has got flaws.
Yeah.
She is not all-knowing, all-perfect, like this clever person. You'd think someone who's clever would maybe be more naturally inclined to something like chess.
Mm-hmm. Because she's got that sort of logic, that very like academic mind. And I don't know why whenever I think of chess, I just always think of really, really smart people.
Yeah, I think it's that definitely like academic game. But I think it's because it's a lot of strategy. And I think this is where the differences between chess or people's perception of chess is it's not necessarily a logical game.
It's just strategy.
It's strategy.
Absolutely. But it does make me wonder that at some point, did Hermione ever beat Ron or Harry at wizard chess? Because I can imagine she would have made it her mission to do it.
Oh, 100%. Like, she would be that determined person of like, I've lost a few games. I'm going away. I'm going to look up every known chess move and how to like get better at chess. She's got like the dummy's guide to chess.
Mm-hmm. But she would never let them know that she's got it.
Oh, 100%. This would be like a book underneath her bed in the dormitory where she knows they can't get to.
See, if she had a Kindle or an iPad, she would be sorted. Password protected.
Locker. Exactly.
Yeah.
Same wavelength, honestly.
100%. So with the chess game now in full swing, the concentration is broken by poor little Neville Longbottom stumbling into the Gryffindor common room after having the leg locker curse performed on him by Draco Malfoy. I was gutted that they left this out of the movie in a deleted scene. And the deleted scene, right enough, it was done in the Great Hall. Mm-hmm. But I must admit, I thought it was quite a nice little touch. It just kind of yet again reinforced how much of a prick Malfoy was. And I think it foreshadowed, I'm not going to say Neville's redemption, but you know what I mean when I say that. You know, it makes those 10 points even more sweeter.
I think it makes a lot more sense because obviously in the books, it's still the same sentence that Dumbledore reads out to Neville of, it's hard to stand up to your enemies, but it's harder to stand up to your friends. Mm-hmm. And this is the start of Neville like getting that pep talk from Ron to stand up to himself. Exactly.
But that kind of comes back to bite them on the arse a little bit, doesn't it?
Just a tad.
Just a tad. I'll fight you. Hermione's like, I'm sorry, simmer down, know your place. So, chill out, love.
We told you to stand up for yourself. Don't be a hero.
So instead of a full leg locker curse, I'm just going to, bind the whole body.
Yeah, exactly. Just freeze you all together.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we get the leg locker curse, and I think it was a smart move to put it as a deleted scene because I think they went a bit too far with this scene in the film. Mm-hmm. They made it too much of comedy because of including Seamus in this like conundrum.
All right, so it sort of turned into like a little bit of a sketch.
Yeah, like the fact that Seamus's eyes have grown back from having exploded previous, like I think it was like the feather in the charms class.
Yeah.
Or was it? I think it was the water into wine that did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then when he turns away, he's then got a bald patch in the back of his head.
So it does. Forgot about that.
Like it is like a really good scene, honest. Like if you cut it out of the film, like it is such a good deleted scene.
Yeah.
But put it in the film and I think it would have just detracted and made it too comical for that point in the film.
Okay, interesting. So it would have probably just changed the whole tone of the film.
Exactly. So having it cut out made a lot more sense, but they then cut out the bit where obviously then Harry finds the clue to Nicholas Flamel.
Yes. So in the book, as opposed to the movie, because of Neville's mishap with Malfoy, shall we say, Harry, as a little bit of a pick-me-up, gave him a chocolate frog, the very last one from the box that Hermione had given him for Christmas. So he gave it to Neville. Neville unwrapped the chocolate, started wolfing down upon it, and then he said to Harry, do you want the card, because he knows that you collect them? And then, dun, 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 who is on the card?
Dumbledore.
Exactly. And what is Dumbledore known for, except for having homosexual relationships with exceptionally dark wizards?
Professor Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel.
That sounds a bit sus, you know, bit of work on his alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel.
Did he do a bit of alchemy with Grindelwald as well?
Oh, he did a lot more than alchemy with Grindelwald. I do not know why, but I can picture Dumbledore and Grindelwald in a bar in Berlin, leather chaps, leather hat, pre-beard but full-blown moustaches. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of scene gay wizards.
Honestly, I think the trouble is, even though Fantastic Beasts come out, I can't just picture Dumbledore without like the full-grown like white beard.
No,
and all I'm getting is like Disney Sword in the Stone Merlin in swim trunks vibe. But instead of the swim trunks, it's the chaps.
God. Poor Richard Harris and Michael Gambon. And chaps. Rest in peace, both.
So yeah, we finally get the clue as to Nicholas Flamel. Mm-hmm. And this is then where Hermione gets the spark of an idea of... This is where she's going to find that clue. Mm-hmm. Now that she's got some work to go off of, she can use that to find out where to look up Nicholas Flamel.
Now, if memory serves me, she got this book, and for the life of me, I cannot remember. Memory is not serving me at this moment in time. But what is the name of the book that she reads this in?
It doesn't actually tell you in the chapter, because I was hoping for the exact same thing, because we talked about it the other week, with the fact of which book this is in. And the only book that's mentioned is, I think it's Ron. Yeah, Ron says, no wonder we couldn't find Flamel in the study of recent developments in wizardry. Mm-hmm. He's not exactly recent if he's 665. Exactly.
And I remember on a previous episode you had said that you'd be surprised that it wasn't in that book.
Mm.
Now, that's a nice little bit of linking back.
Yeah, exactly. But I just thought that it would give you some hint as to what book it was, and it doesn't. So it might be something like Alchemy Through the Ages, or I don't know, like something like that.
Mm-hmm. Like Tom of Finland's book.
Oh, yeah, 100%. With the pictures included.
Absolutely. But there's a bit in here that I've written, and it says, like the quote from the book is, Nicholas Flamel, she whispered dramatically, is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. And I've just written in little brackets, they said the thing.
They said the chapter of the title.
Exactly. It's like, you know, whenever you watch a movie or something and it's like they say the name of the movie and you're like, they've said it, they've said the movie. This is what we're watching.
It's the Peter Griffin gif, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it. That's it. They said the thing. But now, when it comes to the Philosopher's Stone, this is what we are going to be talking about in next week's episode. But what I will touch upon this is a little bit is it also produces the elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal, transform any metal into pure gold. Now, 2 questions for you. Would you use it if you could?
Is that a real question?
Yeah, like, imagine it's a real thing. I mean, well...
Yeah, of course I would. I mean... Like, 100% I'd be using it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I say imagine it's a real thing. I mean, like...
Now, I was thinking earlier, and I think this is something that I want you to have a think about for next week. And I think let's kind of...
I want to
put this out. I want to put this out to everyone. Is... How does it get incorporated into the elixir of life, into that potion? Don't necessarily answer me now, But for you and the listeners, I want you to have a think for next week. How do you make the elixir of life using the Philosopher's Stone?
Do you know this, or is this just what is your theory?
This is literally hypothetical.
Okay.
Of like, what's your theory of how it's used to make the elixir of life?
Fair enough. I'm going to have so much fun researching this for next week. But yeah, we do kind of again learn a few little things about Nicholas Flamel in this instance, but it says that he's a noted alchemist and opera lover. And I absolutely love that tiny little detail to say that he loves opera, but it just made me wonder what's his favourite opera. Because he's been around for 660 odd years. Who knows at what age he died at. But it does make you wonder what his favourite opera was, because 9 times out of 10, I guarantee he's probably been around for as long as opera's been a thing.
He's just seen them all at this point.
Pretty much.
He's seen the start of opera and the death of opera.
Opera's not dead, is it?
Well, it's come out of fashion.
Well, saying that, yeah. I mean, you don't really hear it on the radio as such, like BBC Radio 1, like a new beat from Beethoven, a 4-hour symphony.
To be fair, there is one that Adam goes on about that he has seen live, and he is obsessed with it. And I can see Nicholas Flamel and Dumbledore going to see this together.
What is it?
It's going to be Don Giovanni.
Ah.
Obviously for the art.
Sure, Jan.
I think if any of the operas they would go to and Dumbledore would like drag Nicholas Flamel to see, it would definitely be Don Giovanni, just based on the act.
Absolutely.
But like you said, like it is such a nice. On a bit more serious note, though, it is really nice to kind of get these little subtle hints towards like, okay, he's an alchemist, he's known for this, and this, but he's also an opera lover, and he's also got a wife.
Yeah.
Like, it's those little world-building details.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I do not know, I remember doing a quiz on a cruise ship a couple of years ago, and it was like a Harry Potter quiz, and I was like, okay, it'll just be like the usual stuff. It'll be like, what house is Harry in, kind of type thing. They went deep. They went meta. And it was like, they were saying, what house is Professor Quirrell in? And I was like
Ravenclaw.
Yeah. But you know, that way, it's like, it's not really something that you think off the top of your head. It's like proper, like...
Yeah, it's not like something like most people would know about. Like, this is like in-depth book nerds will know.
Exactly. And then one of the other questions was, what is Nicholas Flamel's wife called? And I do not...
I didn't even realise that this was mentioned in the books until I've literally just read it the other night.
You and me both. You and me both. And I was like, you know that gif or meme of Julia Roberts with all the equations?
Yeah.
That was me. I was like, and I still won. I will point that out. I was very proud. I was very proud of myself.
Any Harry Potter quiz, like, just pay, hands down, just give up. AJ will win.
Well, or Greg. Greg is very good.
I kind of want to put you two like head to head.
I don't.
Like hands on buzzers.
I don't, because I quite enjoy this little delusion of grandeur that I've got in my head at the moment. It's quite comfortable it's very comfortable for me. It's a nice little resting spot. I don't really want that chipped away at.
You don't know knocking off the pedestal.
No.
Not for you.
Not for me. Not for me. Now, moving on, the next morning after this situation where we discover who Nicholas Flamel is, there's a little subtle part in this that I picked up on. And it says, in defence against the dark arts, they were copying down different ways of treating werewolf bites. Now, did they then revisit werewolves in third year? Because I imagine, right, that if this has been taught in first year, Hermione would have read extensively on the subject before Professor Snape set the essay in Prisoner of Azkaban. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe it's very much a case of like first, like, you know, when you cover like certain subjects in school, like you'll maybe, especially like biology and stuff, you'll cover like you'll cover like genetics, but then you'll cover like the genomes of species, or like, you know what I mean, that kind of like layered detail.
I mean, so do you think at this stage it's like werewolves, what do they do? Fight.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. How to recognize a werewolf? Like, what do you do if you're getting bitten? That sort of thing.
Yeah, like, this is a werewolf. Run.
Next topic. But I don't know whether you picked out the same thing that I did then, because I thought you were going to allude to more the fact that they're discussing the Philosopher's Stone in defense against the dark arts. Who teaches defense against the dark arts and might overhear this conversation?
Well, very true. Very true. I did not think of that. Do you know what I've just thought of? Voldemort finally got to achieve his lifelong dream of teaching defense against the dark arts. Full circle moment. Love that.
But that would have broken the curse. Oh. J.K. Rowling, you didn't think of everything.
I bet she did. She's probably sitting there. There will be a meta answer to this. I guarantee you she's like, somebody ask me. I dare you.
I'm waiting for it.
I'm waiting. Go for it. No, but what I had picked up on in this section of the chapter was because they were discussing the Philosopher's Stone, Ron had said he would buy his own Quidditch team. And then it sort of raised a point in my mind. And I was like, well, if you had unlimited gold, essentially, you know, you could transform any metal into pure gold, you've got unlimited wealth, essentially. So what would you spend that money on? And if you had a Quidditch team, what would you call it? Question for next week.
Interesting.
I will come back. I will come back to you on that and we shall discuss.
So obviously we talked about like them talking about the Philosopher's Stone in defense against dark arts, and I still don't understand how Quirrell didn't catch on to this, especially during that conversation he then later has with Snape. But it's obviously like really fortuitous to the group that he didn't pick up on this. Obviously, the last thing he wants is Harry to get wind of his plan yet again. So I just don't know whether this is a intentional move that they were talking about it in defense against dark arts or not. I'm going to go with it was intentional.
It was. See, really what we really need is Professor Quirrell and the Philosopher's Stone as a movie to see his perspective on it.
Literally just him going to bed and like you said, lying in bed, talking back to back.
It's
the hard talk.
Literally. Now, where are we? So defense against the dark arts, yada. So coming up, we do have the Quidditch match, which Harry is naturally feeling anxious about. But there's a little subtle hint in here. And it says Slytherin had won the house championship for, I think, the past 7 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, the number 7, right, is a very important number, not just in Harry Potter, but like historically throughout religions, etc. It's a very powerful number, right? But what I've noticed here is that you've got 7 years, 7 school years, 7 Horcruxes, 7 books. Like, you see 7, if you look for it, that number crops up so many times throughout the series. So many times. Especially
like July being the 7th month.
Exactly. That was my point, the fact that 7 is a very powerful number.
Yeah. Going on to then the Quidditch match itself, though, with obviously Harry, Ron and Hermione having prepared thoroughly and extensively for this match, waiting for Harry to be basically dead by the end of this match.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, that's really what you want with a pep talk, isn't it? Of like, well, we're here if you're dead.
Soz.
So, yeah, it's just a bit... I don't know. I'm kind of with Harry with the fact of, like... It's comforting knowing they're in the stadiums with their wands ready, but also, like... Yeah, you kind of said goodbye to me like I'm about to die.
Exactly.
Thanks.
It's like, I'm not going off to war. I'm just going to play Quidditch.
Yeah.
But just to sort of look back just for a tiny little second, there's a section in this part of the chapter, and they're saying that whenever Harry's going to potions, it's almost becoming torturous for him. It's as if Snape was even being more so horrible to Harry. And then he starts to think, could Snape possibly know that they'd found about the Philosopher's Stone? But then Harry says he didn't see how he could, yet he sometimes had the horrible feeling that Snape could read minds. Yet again, another tiny little bit of foreshadowing. But then
the breadcrumbs.
But then it made me think, has like Snape been legilimensing Harry for the whole series? And is it pretty... I mean, that is quite unethical, I imagine, as a teacher.
Especially as a teacher, yeah.
It's a bit nasty. Bit nasty.
I don't think he has.
No, I doubt it.
But I do like... I am with you. It is a really nice subtle hint to, obviously, that is one of Snape's specialty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Do you think he was doing that on Quirrell, though?
Yeah. Now, that's the thing. Then again, you've got the whole factor, though, of would you need your wand to do legilimency? Like, as in to properly cast the spell using your wand? Or is that a branch of magic that could be wandless?
I want to say it's going to be a branch of magic that could be wandless.
Yeah.
But I think it depends on your level of natural ability towards that branch of magic. Because obviously, don't forget, Queenie can do legitimacy regardless of whether she's casting a spell or not. She's just a natural legitimate.
So she is. Almost kind of like a metamorph magi. It's something that you're born with.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, 9 times out of 10, like, you can train to be an animagus. You can use magic to change your features and then revert it back. But to have that natural ability, it's something that you're born with. Or maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know.
Especially with Snape's hair.
Oh, God, yeah. Man needs Head and Shoulders, not bloody Maybelline. So yes, coming back to the Quidditch match itself, it seemed to be as if it was going to be like the Quidditch match of the season, because the whole school had turned out, but even Professor Dumbledore came to watch. Now, this had me thinking, Snape probably did tell Dumbledore about this, about his suspicions.
Yeah, probably. Because obviously he was doing the counter curse in the first match to Quirrell. So he's obviously on to them. But interestingly, obviously we're reading this probably from Harry's perspective and Harry, Ron and Hermione's perspective. So we don't even know whether Quirrell is at this match. We just know that Snape and Dumbledore are at the match. But I'm definitely with the fact that obviously Dumbledore and Snape have talked.
Yeah.
Snape is obviously there. We know that is for different reasons. Snape's there so he can save Harry because he's right there.
Yeah, he's in the thick of it. And he doesn't want a repeat of the initial Quidditch match.
Yeah, exactly. And that's then also why Dumbledore's there. So we obviously know they're both there for completely different reasons to what the trio are thinking at this point. But obviously, it's just interesting we don't get an idea. It's really at this point within the books that it's trying to force you down into the road of it's definitely Snape.
Yeah. It's like he is the villain.
Yeah.
He is the villain. He is a villain in his own right, but not in this book as such.
Not in the sense that the book is portraying him as.
Nah, not necessarily. But during the Quidditch match, Malfoy comes and starts to do his usual crap. But then Neville, he stands up to him and says that he's worth 12 of him. Which
It's all kicking off.
It's all kicking off. And then I read that and I was like, absolutely, get in, Neville. Absolutely get in. But then this kind of like escalated even further because Ron ended up going full pelt and Ron started wrestling Malfoy to the ground, and then Neville then jumped over and then started to help. I was like, okay, Neville, major character development over the school year.
This should have been the deleted scene that they would have filmed. This should have been in the film.
It should have been. And then small matter of the fact was that Harry then caught the snitch again and Gryffindor won. Yay. But this is Neville's moment as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you say that. I'm more concerned about the fact that this whole game was cut from the film, because not only is it Neville's kind of redemption and kind of like, but also the fact that it's proving Harry as a really good seeker yet again.
Yeah.
And I think actually this is where the films really didn't do Harry justice in Quidditch. We see him do one good game of Quidditch. Mm-hmm. The rest of the time, he's getting hit by a bludger or falling off his broom from Dementors. Mm-hmm. He is... I don't think we actually see him like do a proper game of Quidditch like the rest of the season ever.
No, I don't think we ever do.
Whereas like this, it's like he's caught the snitch in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Insane amount.
Like that's like record, like it says it's record breaking. He is still he's the youngest seeker and he's breaking records.
Love that for him.
Does he need any more justification?
Probs not.
So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, this is like just proving how good Harry is at Quidditch, and it's just completely overlooked in the films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Go book Harry.
Oh, book Harry, what a ledge. So after all the excitement of that Quidditch match, Harry then leaves the pitch, takes his Nimbus 2000 back to the broom shed, and there is a quote in this chapter that is one of my absolute favourites. And it says, Harry had reached the shed. He leaned against the wooden door and looked up at Hogwarts with its windows glowing red in the setting sun. Bottle that feeling and inject it into my veins.
Honestly, like as soon as I read that, I just had a visual image of just a close-up shot of Harry's face, the glasses just glowing that kind of that pinkish peachy red of sunset, just like bright glaring into his glasses.
It's just absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love it. I really do. Harry at this point, he's feeling absolutely on top of the world because Gryffindor are currently in the lead, and he'd shown Snape that he is a phenomenal seeker. But then, talking of Professor Snape, dun dun dun,
who comes along, billowing with his cloak.
Oh, what a man. Couldn't billow any billower if he tried.
Living his best life, gliding into the Forbidden Forest.
Do you know, talking of gliding, so you know how in the books there's only 2 characters who can fly without the use of a broom or any other magical device? So Voldemort and Snape. See if I could get away with it. My legs would be stationary. You know, I would just fly everywhere. Like,
just be like hovering like 2 inches above the ground, just do.
I'd just be like, yeah, I can do this without a wand. And what? Your point? Not me.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So yes, Professor Snape is now billowing his way towards the Forbidden Forest for a little midnight rendezvous liaison. With whom?
It was Quirrell.
Ovs.
Who else?
I know. I think at this point you're really starting to get a picture of how much a victim Professor Quirrell is. Do you know what? He has basically been gaslit. We have been gaslit by Professor Quirrell this whole time in the book.
I don't think we have.
I think we have. We have. Professor Quirrell is putting it out to the world that he is a stuttering mess. And then all of a sudden, towards the end, he just whips off that turban and it was like, guess what, bitch? No, we have been gaslit.
He is the villain of his own demise.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know about you, with Harry kind of sneaking alongside them, did you, when you read this, did you kind of get this idea that Harry, like, the way I read this is Harry's seen Snape and he's almost got his broom in his hand. He's not even riding the broom and he's just kind of holding it and it's kind of like pulling him up, and he's then just kind of walking along branches and the broom is there to kind of steady him. That's kind of how I'm kind of picturing this whole scene, is instead of him just kind of like hovering on a broom, he's not even riding the broom. He's kind of like flown up.
Oh no, I had it that it was like on the broomstick and just let his feet dangle. And then just try not to be caught, you know, like doing a whole spy routine. You know that like meme of Alyssa Edwards with the gun and the wig? Like imagine that, but on the roof.
100%. Like sassy Harry.
Right. I know I'm going off on a tangent about Drag Race, right? But you know that way it was. I've just got oh my Laganja Estranja. Oh, y'all wanted a twist, eh? Like it wasn't Snape, it was Quirrell. Let's get sickening. That's what I'm saying.
And it's just Snape and he just whips the turban on. It just makes him spin into a death drop.
You know those videos that you see and it's like people falling and then it all of a sudden cuts to like people at like a ball doing the whole oh that note, right? For the life of me can't remember what you call it. Voguing, that's the thing, voguing. When it cuts to that,
yeah,
I can see that for Quirrell and Snape.
He was strutting into the Forbidden Forest.
I would be horrendous on Drag Race. I mean, look at this. I don't have double joints. I'm just very wooden.
Flailing like a chicken.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. The chapter's basically done at this point.
But we do find out, and again, like we said, this is hinting at more Snape being the bad guy over Quirrell. And I was reading the obviously the kind of like I'm going to say transcript because I read more of what they're saying rather than the in-between bits, because I kind of just cut to the chase with a lot of this. But with what Snape and Quirrell are talking about, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you know obviously what happens, Snape's the good guy interrogating Quirrell. It doesn't make it sound like that from what they say. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make it sound like Snape is trying to get Quirrell to confess.
Yeah.
And I know obviously they're trying to do red herrings and throw people off the scent of like it's Quirrell, it's Snape, kind of thing. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know whether you thought the same thing when you read it, but I don't know. It makes Snape sound so much more dodgy than he actually is.
Yeah, I mean, like, from when I read it, I just sort of seen it as Snape trying to intimidate Quirrell to help him get the stone. That's the way that I read it. But
okay, so turning that then, do you think it's Snape trying to help Quirrell, help in kind of very loose quotes, to try and get Quirrell caught in the act?
No, I mean, initially when I read, like, as I say, when I read it, I just pictured this as they're trying to paint Snape as the villain in this piece, and he is doing everything he can, like intimidation, to get Quirrell to tell him how to get past all the hocus pocus.
But do you see what I mean, though, when I said, like, it makes Snape seem like the villain, when actually he should be the one being the interrogator?
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. If anything could be tweaked, it would be this dialogue.
Okay, fair enough.
Keep it still kind of like suspicious and everything, but it could be written so much better where actually it makes it sound like Snape is still the bad guy, just not the bad guy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And obviously Harry is then flustered and everything and runs immediately back to Ron and Hermione to try and tell them that stop partying. It doesn't matter what happened with Quidditch. This is what I've seen. I love Hermione sometimes, but it's the fact that, so you mean the stone's safe as long as Quirrell stands up to Snape?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like saying it in such an alarm. It's like, okay, so no one's got faith in Quirrell. It's like he's defense against dark arts. And yet, like, Snape is his biggest threat.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, part of me does think Quirrell must have been a fairly decent wizard or defense against the dark arts teacher in order to get the post. And then I think who replaces him? And then I'm like,
Yeah, but saying that, like, Quirrell has got a decent backstory, and we'll cover, like, actually a bit more about his character in a later episode.
Yeah.
Because we have got that as one of our plans. But it's like he has got a good defense against the dark arts background.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a guy who kind of like takes lightly to dark forces.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, I suppose, bearing in mind, Harry, Ron and Hermione are just having their experience of him. They've not been at Hogwarts for however many number of years. So everybody else must have had faith in him, just probably not the first years.
Well, saying that, was he defense against the dark arts before this year?
Probs not. Makes you wonder, though, what was he doing? We will discuss that in a later episode.
So yeah, we end this chapter on a bit of a daunting note of the stone's not safe. Snape's going to get it. What's going to happen next?
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen next. Well, we are going to talk next week about the Philosopher's Stone. I did it. I said the thing.
The thing? Is that the thing?
Yes, so we are going to be talking to you about all things Philosopher's Stone, creation, lifespan, owners, destruction, the whole kit and caboodle.
Exactly.
So be sure to tune in next week to that. But before we sign off and say cherry bubbles in kindest regards, we will be putting a few questions to yourself. Well, what was your question?
So mine was going to be, how does the Philosopher's Stone get used to make the elixir of life?
And my question was going to be, if you could name a Quidditch team, what would you name it?
Make sure to head over to our Instagram pages where we will be posting these questions, and let us know in the comments section. Either that or drop us a comment down below in the video if you are watching on YouTube.
On the YouTube.
On the YouTube. But as always, thank you guys so much for listening, and please keep your radios tuned in for next week's episode where Why
is it always this bit? It's always this bit. Every week.
Every week I can't get the fucking words out of my mouth. It's because I've talked for so bloody long that I can't do this bit. It's so unnatural. I don't know.
So,
either that or it's the fact like I'm at the bottom of a fucking gin and tonic that this is now the spluttering mess that I am. So thank you guys so much for listening, and as always, keep your radios tuned in for next week's episode. If you haven't already, make sure to favourite our podcast on YouTube and over on wherever it is you subscribe to your podcasts, so you make sure you never miss an episode and see our lovely faces every week. So without further ado, we will see you next week on next week's podcast.
Stunning. Cherry bubbles.
Kindest regards.
Bye.